true psychopath. When you're lost, take your trust. That's me. That's so sick. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psycho. Ooh. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trust. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Yes, I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. Without further ado, I'm so glad you guys were all here. I started a little late, and I don't want to keep the girls too long on a school night and a work night. So I'm going to bring them up so we can get right into it. Okie dokie, artichokes. Hey, Harls. Hey, Giggles. How you doing, girls?
How are you? Can you hear me fine?
Yep, you guys sound great.
Am I enunciating enough?
You are enunciating. Your elocution is perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So as I told you guys earlier, excuse me, that you might have missed, these girls are the original founders of the Godejohn. Sorry, you guys. I have a little frog in my throat. The Nicholas Godejohn Freedom Project. And I'm going to let them tell you about that, their experience with that and how it got started and all of that. So girls, whichever one of you wants to go, take it away. I will be keeping an eye on chat and starring questions for later. Okay. So take it away, ladies.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and start here. So about 2019, we had different groups that we belonged to at the time. And one of the groups ended up getting dissolved. So we made our own group, one that would specifically support Nick, not as just, we believe he should be free, but we also believe that he needs a family type of support, a support that he did not have growing up, and he lost because of what he had done, the crime that he had committed. So we all pulled together and we had the group, the Nicholas Godejohn Freedom Project. I'm not sure if any of you guys remember that, but that's what we had. In that group, we would basically give everybody a day-to-day, how he's doing, what's coming up for him, things of that sort.
What's just going on with his appeals and such.
Yeah. And just basically humanizing him, he's not this character that you see off the act. He's not that person. Yes, the act is very fictionalized, but at the same time, it put him in a light where, I don't know, maybe people sensationalized it way too much and just forgot that he is a human being. He's not this character. He's not that, was it Callum or whatever his name was? Great actor, but it's not him. We had to make sure people knew the real Nick. And that was our purpose at that time.
Okay. And what about now? Are you guys still doing it? Are you?
No.
You know? Okay.
No. The group had since dissolved. I think early into 2020. It was like a really short-lived group. It's just in 2019, there was so much drama. And that's putting it very lightly without painting a huge picture for everybody. But it was just full of, we're the Nick supporters. Oh, no, we want the details. And there's just so much going on where it just...
But there was also issues amongst the admins. So a couple of us stepped away from the politics of it all.
And when you guys stepped away from the politics of it all, were you still communicating with Nick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I know the answers to these questions, but I want the audience to know.
We didn't step away from Nick. We stepped away from the group.
Okay. So to give you guys a little context, at one point, probably, what was it, girls, do you think? April, May, April for sure, I know that Nick had the first girlfriend. That we're not going to say her name or anything because, we don't roll like that over here. But
nope.
How I knew this girl is I belonged to the Facebook group that she ran, the first girlfriend. And she was looking for how to get funding for an attorney to represent Nick in his appeal that was not a public defender. And I got very frustrated because I felt like she wanted me to do the work. And I wasn't trying to do that. And what I told her was, you need to look into Lori Eccles, because she spearheaded and was behind a lot of, not in the early day, actually kind of in the early days, not right at the beginning though, but pretty early on. She is the one who really worked diligently to get their fund, the defense fund, up. And, we all see how that turned out. And so that is what I suggested she do. But I wanted no part of being in charge of any of that. I didn't know her, and y'all know how I feel about the Facebooks. And yes. I was leery because I didn't know. So, and then when the three of us, how we met was we were all mods at one time for Natasha Cooper, briefly. We don't need to discuss her either. But because that's not what we're but that was part of some of the drama that was going on, because at one point the first girlfriend was very pro, he's the best thing since sliced bread. And then something happened, and I'm not even 100% sure what that something was.
So what happened was she was going to try to make money off of him. And so she was antagonizing him and trying to bring out, quote unquote, his darker side. And what she would do is she would sit there and be like, well, I want to see this darker side. And she would email him, well, I want to see, Victor and all his other personalities that he had. And then she utilizes those emails and be like, look, this is how he talks to me on a day-to-day. I'm abused, I'm this, I'm that, to get sympathy. And she was trying to sell her emails, their private emails, to try to come up. And that's what kind of happened with that stuff.
All right. So Mo Dean says, what's the deal? What's the big deal with Nicholas Godejohn? Do they think he's innocent and want him released? So I'll let you girls answer that.
So everybody knows he's not innocent. I mean, he's even admitted himself in when after he got arrested, those interviews and stuff, that he did do this. There's a lot more into it. We feel like he needs treatment more than just jail time. Psychologically, as a child, he never got the help that he needed as a child So then it spirals, and now we're here. Harles, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? You
So
know a lot more of that than I do.
yeah, so just to piggyback off of you, of course we know he's not innocent. Been proven, been there, done that. Let's move on from that portion. The portion that I personally cared about was a matter of how we decide the sentencing for individuals who are intellectually or developmentally disabled. That was my initial wanting to know more about this case and wanting to know how his intellectual disability actually played into his sentence, which I believe it did not at all. We're not saying that he absolutely deserves to be free, open up that prison and let him out. No, he still committed a crime. The time still needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But mine was more or less a sentence reformation for not just himself, but anybody else that could be looped into that. So that's kind of where we went with it. And that's my take on it, at least.
So just to be clear, the Nick Godejohn Freedom Project, as it is no longer, it's something else now, isn't it?
Right. He has a new group out there. The Nick Godejohn, was it the Cornerstone Nation?
Cornerstone, yeah.
Yes. So he has, that's his one group that we know for sure that he and his father definitely still support, communicate. It's their approved group. If you want to be the closest to, I guess, knowing Nick better and like-minded individuals, that would be, I guess, the group to go to.
So let me ask you guys this. So now that we know a little bit about like how you guys came into this, what it was that, what made you guys decide to begin communicating with Nicholas, and talk a little bit about your communications, how they started, as much as you feel comfortable with, of course.
So for me, I think it was after watching the act, like I started like Googling about the actual case itself, and one of the person that we're not going to names, one of their groups somehow popped up. And like I started like just kind of just reading what everybody says, because you know me, I'm kind of one of those, like, I kind of sit back and observe.
Mm-hmm.
And that person that we're not going to name somehow gravitated towards me. And she was like, just write him. It's cool. He's real nice. He's, he'll write everybody back. It might take him some time, but he'll write you back. And so like my first couple emails were like, hi, I don't know exactly everything that's, going on, but I just want to let you know that, I'm here if you need somebody to talk to, like, and then once we formed the group, it became I was getting, messages from him every day, and it just kind of evolved from there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, with myself, it was, I remember when the crime occurred, because it was huge. It was on the news. They were looking for this girl who was in a wheelchair. And then next thing you know, she's walking into her arraignment. How can this happen? And I remember being like, I have to know more. So I was keeping tabs a little bit, but it wasn't until, I would say, the act came out, where knowing that the act is dramatized, I decided, okay, let me do my own homework. And then around that same time, my youngest was actually diagnosed with autism as well. So part of me was like, I don't want my kid to go through all of this, get sentenced to life in prison, and his autism is not even taken into an account. That's not right. It's not fair. Every crime does have a punishment, but how excessive was that? And was there any way that they could have rehabilitated him or figured out what got him to that point and, fixed it in a way, or at least try to, in a way to, I don't know, like rehab him in a way where he could get I'm trying not getting my words right here, but
You're doing great, babe. You're doing just fine.
it was just upsetting to know that happened to someone like him, where his past, his mother not giving him the care that he needed, the occupational therapy, the any type of empathy type of therapy was not there, and it was not taken into an account. And here's this person locked up. And could that be my son one day if he decides to go down the wrong path? And I didn't want that to happen to any other child, or especially my own.
Right.
So that's how I got involved. And so therefore I went ahead and I emailed him and I reached out, basically, you know what, I want to tell you that, I'm supporting you as far as your appeals go. I hope that they do get you the help that you need, and so on and so forth. And from there, we had a dialogue. And so I would say that, we got everybody who actually was there for Nick just to be that support system that he did not have, and how the system failed him. That was our goal. And so we kept that up for a little while there.
Right. I think a common misconception is that when anybody, because it's happened to me too, not as much now, but way back when you talk about Nick, you get met with a lot of, well, he said he said he was going to do this, and he said he was going to do that. And I think what people are not understanding about what we're trying to say here, I was drawn to Nick's trial for the same reason that Harl's was, because I did not think, it's not that I didn't think that Nick was guilty. He confessed to it. I mean, he said it. He told everything that he did. Maybe, so I knew he did what he did. My issue was always, I don't think that Nick, because he's on the spectrum, was able to form the required deliberation under the law. And I think that them using the angel and the devil conversation that he said he had when he did that news interview from jail, I felt like that was really misrepresenting what Nick was actually trying to convey in that moment. And when you look at his appeals right now, the way that they're written, that's basically what they're saying. They're not saying that Nick didn't do it. They're not saying that Nick isn't guilty. What they're saying is, where is the best place for Nick? Is prison the best place, or should he be somewhere else where he can also, because he needs treatment, he has underlying mental health issues. And Harls and Giggles, you guys talk about that, because they spoke a lot with Nick, and Nick shared with them what his childhood was like. So you guys want to share about that, or talk about that, I should say?
Well, I know that.
I knew that was going to happen.
We're doing the ultimate chicken.
Go ahead. Zoned out for a second, my man. No, what was the question again on that? Like,
you guys talked quite extensively with Nick about his childhood. And
yes.
So I would like for you guys, because a lot of people don't really understand what was going on in Nick's background prior to June 9th, 2015.
So as a kid, his mother was never really there for him emotionally, mentally, and barely physically. I remember there was a conversation I had with him where he told me, he was like, I'd cry for my mom and be like, trying to open up to her, like, how a child should be able to open up to their mom. And she would call me a baby and tell me to stop crying and to grow up. And he was like, I was 7 years old at the time. There were times where he'd reach out to his mom about things that he was feeling. Like there's like he knew he's always known there's something off about him, but like his mom just didn't seem to really care enough to try to get him the help he needed. And if she had, I mean, all of this could have been prevented.
I mean, completely. Where, like you said, his mom did not intervene in any way to better his situation, better his health. I mean, as a mom, you have to know something's not right. I mean, that's what led to me knowing that something's not right with my son. And that's what made me question the doctors more. Her, it just seems like, here's your food, here's this, here's that, get out of my face, do whatever you want. Left him to his own devices rather than actually mentor him and guide him through life and get him those interventions that he needed. It was a matter of, it's fine, he's fine, he's fine. Just do whatever you want, just stay out of my way.
His mom took him to a therapist one time, and I guess that's when they evaluated him, and said that he had, like his mental capacity was like at the age of a 14-year-old.
And he was how old?
I think he was like 19 at the time, 18, something like that. But that it wasn't ever really going to change. Like, that's kind of where his mental capacity was. I believe it was also spoke about when his mother was talking to the police, and she had brought it up in there too. Like, he only has the mental capacity of a 14, 15-year-old. And she only brought him to a therapist one time and then just never brought him back. That's, I think, believe how they found out he was autistic. Was right about that time.
So Lil Red is asking, why didn't the school system intervene?
The
you guys think?
System, yeah, I would say the school system can only intervene to
So
an
much.
extent. It's up to the parents because, for example, my youngest, he has individual education plan, individualized education plan, an IEP, where they take into an account his autism diagnosis and put that into play when it comes to him taking tests, him getting extra help, him talking with a counselor at school. But if his mom is not willing to get him a diagnosis until late in his teens, right when he's about to be an adult, the school's really not going to be able to really help except for go get it done. We feel that your son may be falling into the subject. So it's up to the parent at that point to decide, yes, I will take your advice. I will heed it and I will go ahead and get my son seen. Or she could be like, well, there's nothing wrong with my son. He's, we love him the way he is. There's nothing he doesn't need to change.
Right.
So
right.
There's two different attitudes there. So it depends if she was proactive looking for his future or just didn't want to deal with it, plain and simple.
Right. And what about Bobby? Because I think there's a misconception about what the deal was what that situation was. And you girls know. So can you tell us about what his relationship was like with Bobby before the murders?
As a child, I don't think Bobby was around a lot, but I don't think that was at the fault, really much fault of Bobby. I think Nick's mom kind of kept him away. But I know after he got arrested, his dad has been there for him every single day. His dad will go without to make sure that Nick has money on his books. Or I remember one time Nick's tablet broke, and Bobby didn't want to ask anybody for money, and he went without for a couple weeks of like cutting back on food, cutting back on this. He stopped taking the bus and started riding his bike to wherever he had to go because he was trying to save up every last dollar to get Nick a new tablet. So I don't know a lot about where Bobby was beforehand, but I know that since Nick has been in jail, his dad has been there every step of the way. His dad is his number one supporter.
Right.
Yeah, I would have to definitely agree with that. I don't know too much because I never really myself questioned where was Bobby? Where was Bobby? I just know that Bobby's there now
Right.
and he is staying there and he's not going anywhere. No matter what people say, no matter however many support groups pops up, he's still going to be there supporting his son every step of the way.
Did he ever have any jobs, Nick? Because I know that they portrayed it that way in the act, and to be honest with you, I would have known the answer back in the day, but I don't remember it now. I feel like
do believe he worked for Little Caesars.
so that part
Yeah.
is somewhat true.
I
Yeah, I
believe
believe that's
so, but
correct.
I believe like he was just out there flipping signs. I don't think they really brought. I think they tried to bring him in one time, and it really didn't work out. So like he was out there flipping signs at Little Caesar.
Okay. All right. So I want to show you guys. This is an email between Nick and one of the girls. And so and I've talked about this in the documentary, especially part 2, about this pregnancy situation. So if you guys remember, just to refresh your memories, Gypsy and Nick had 3 plans. Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. Plan A was permission. So the plan was for Nick to meet Dee Dee, and Dee Dee would like Nick and allow them to date. Plan B was murder because that's the order of it. And Plan C was to try and get Gypsy pregnant. Okay. And I told you guys that Gypsy did tell Nick that she was pregnant. So I'm going to read to you guys a little bit of this. I'm going to read you guys this email and then we're going to talk about it. Sound good, girls?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you girls would do me a favor and mute your mics while I read it, so there's no background noise. It's hard on us on the audience with the earbuds. Please. Okay, perfect. All right, so it says, "Hi, little sis. First off, it's true. I almost had a baby girl. If she was born, whew, I would have been a very fierce father to deal with. But I believe she miscarried it on purpose, as sick and twisted as she is. Well, thank you for opening up about your childhood, little sis. However, this part for me is going to be hard. Where to start? Apparently, from what my dad told me, he caught my mom using white powdery substance and while pregnant with me. Let's just say this. I wouldn't have existed if not for my dad. I've never had really really emotional bond with my mother. So it's forced me to find a woman to not only fulfill her role as a wife, but also a motherly one, because I never truly knew a mother's love growing up. She always tried to buy my love because she was too scared inside to express the kind of love a child needs from her mother while growing up, which never truly worked. Yeah, you know how they say a mother's love is supposed to be unconditional? Well, my mother's wasn't. As soon as I went down here after she found out what I did. Hold on. She never attempts to contact me or anything. That relationship is broken. Yesterday, I realized it. If she can't be here for me when I need her the most, then I don't need her. I feel her love was always conditional. So pardon my French as that cliche goes, but fuck her. If she don't care for me like a mother is supposed to, for I'm motherless now, then fuck her. This only proved I don't need her. Hell, I don't remember many good memories as a child. This is why I hate talking about my childhood. I mean, I remember trying to save my mom from an abusive boyfriend at the age of 5 because I couldn't stand to see my mom abused anymore. Or I remember my mom emotionally abusing me, like when I would try to open up like a normal kid's supposed to his parents. My mom would call me names like drama queen, for example. I apparently blocked out all the rest of the memories of my mom yelling at me. She doesn't respect her son. I know she purposely tried to get me to hit her. I was left, let's see, hold on. I know better, but she tried anyways. This is depressing me. Sorry, sis, I can't go on anymore about my childhood. The last thing I'm comfortable bringing up for now is my childhood was extremely lonely. I was left alone way more than any child should be at a extremely young age, like 6 or 7 years old. I'm done talking about my childhood for now. It's too depressing. This is why I'm always in the now or thinking of the future, because I have no past worth talking about. Maybe another time, if I'm up to it, I'll tell you whatever memories I have left, because I try to block out as many as I can. Well, I'm going to send this now, but I need to ask you, did my appeal get approved? I was told by someone who has been watching its status the entire time that it was. I love you greatly, little sis. I hope your Tuesday is great. Love your big brother, Nicholas, Mr. Smiley, Godejohn. So when I know that it says July, oops, that's not what I'm trying to say here. Let me close this window. I know it says July 1st, but what year is that?
That would have been 2019.
2019. Okay. So when you're emailing Nick like this through JPay,
Mm-hmm.
and he is okay, so I'm just going to say it flat out. Nick seems to have a great deal of insight into his own psyche and his own situation. And where do you guys think that comes from? You know, if he never was in therapy or anything like that, where does all of this insight into a mother's love come from and how it should be with parents? Where do you think that comes from? How does he have such great insight? Hello?
I'm sorry, I forgot I had my mic muted. I muted and then unmuted and then muted.
He'll get used to it.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it's just what he feels like a mother should have been like, or what he desired or what he wanted.
Okay.
Nick does research some stuff.
Okay.
I don't want anybody to think Nick is, I don't want to say the word stupid, but stupid. Nick is not dumb. He is very functioning, but he does have a very immature personality at times. A lot of that I feel like is he sits back and he realizes that his mom wasn't there for him the way he wanted her to be, nor the way she probably should have been. I think that's where that comes from. Harrow's, I know you spoke with him a lot about that type of stuff.
I would say that there's always that desire within him, like to be like, I wish I had. And, you know, if he's growing up watching any type of TV, you get that resemblance of a mother figure that you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's had enough time to really just sit and think about everything during his court cases when they brought up his past. Just self-reflecting is, I know that I think at some point he was meditating and whatnot, but there was always something missing, and that was like a mother's love,
Right.
or just something even just resembling it. And that's what he missed out on. Is had he had that, maybe he wouldn't be where he is. But it is what it is now, and how do you move forward?
Well, when you say that he is immature, Giggles, what do you mean by that? Like, what does that mean?
It's very like it would be the equivalent of a child throwing a tantrum when they think something's unfair. You know, a lot of times Nick does want everything his way, or he'll try to make you feel like you're wrong. And he'll be like, trust me, I know this for a fact. And it's like, you don't know that for a fact.
Can you give me like an example of that? Because see, okay, let me just put it like this. Gypsy said a lot of times, you girls know this, but let me just get to what I'm trying to ask you. So she said a lot of times that Nick was very domineering, very controlling, and he basically bossed her around. And I'm curious how you guys feel about that. Did you guys find that he is that way? Is that something that she's being honest about? Because look, let's just be honest. I don't think anybody, no matter how you feel about Gypsy, one way or another, I think everybody can agree that she is a liar. Okay.
Mhm.
She knows she's a liar. She's admitted it. So it's very difficult to understand. And Nick does not do interviews. And when he did the one,
Right.
it was awful. So what do you guys
I
think?
think when it comes down to that, he fits into whatever role you want him to fit. So if you want somebody who's very domineering, he's gonna try to put that show on for you. He was never like that with me. But I would also tell him, like, bro, you're not gonna do any you're in prison, my dude. You're in prison. Um like like how I brought up about the emails that he would send, because that one that we shall not name would provoke it and be like, well, I want to see this. I'm Gypsy fed into that mindset by creating these personalities and wanting to bring them out and bring it out. And I think that's, the same thing. Oh, well, this is how he was. Well, you asked him to be that way in a sense too, by creating all the different personalities to fit his personalities. You're asking for that.
You're
Because I think he
encouraging.
had, right. I think he had like 5, 6 different personalities at one point. According to him, he only has one now, or 2 technically, his normal self and one other personality. The rest of them kind of went away, I guess.
I mean, when you're reinforcing a behavior versus
Right.
saying, hey, that's not right, you probably shouldn't talk like that, or maybe you should get that checked out, versus feeding into it and normalizing it.
Right.
And
That
creating
to
a
me
whole
is like,
persona for it.
you created however many personalities to try to match. Was really that the best decision to do? You
Right.
could have just said, you know what? This is not for me. Nice to know you. Bye. Instead, she decided, you know what? Let me go ahead and I'm going to make up my own, because that's going to show how much we belong together and whatnot. And oh, it's just irritating.
So one thing that I want to ask to that point is with this, okay, one thing that's come out in the appeals
Hmm.
is Dan. Okay, now Dan is we've known about Dan for quite a long time. Not a for sure name. Gypsy confirmed his name in the prison confessions. Okay, so but we
Hmm.
knew who he was, we knew he existed, all of the things. What we did not know is that allegedly, and I use allegedly because it hasn't been determined in a court of law, and I ain't trying to get a lawsuit. So allegedly, according to this appeal, one of the things that Dan testified to is that it was actually Gypsy who introduced him to BDSM, where and I'm not judging anybody's kink. We don't kink shame at the ward.
Nope.
My name's Paul. That's between y'all. As long as it's 2 consenting adults, I don't care. Live your life. But what I'm curious about is that BDSM and the daddy-daughter weird fantasy that existed and all of that. really was played out predominantly in the text messages between Gypsy and Nick that we've seen. And believe me, you guys, those are not all of the texts. Those are just the texts they used at Nick's trial. Did you guys get a sense, or ask him directly, or speak, get a direct answer, that were you shocked about the thing about Dan when that came out, that Gypsy is the one who taught Dan about BDSM, that she was already into that sort of lifestyle, whereas we've always thought all along, and to some extent Nick has sort of said that he's never, I don't think, actually, that might not even be true. I don't think he's actually ever come out publicly and said that Gypsy is that he's the one that brought it up to Gypsy, that it was.
I've never personally asked him that question. So I'm not exactly sure if he was the one that, started it with her, or she started it, or if they both were like, hey,
I think
no matter what kind of kink you have, you're going to find somebody else online with that same kink.
This is true.
And I feel like they probably both kind of had that kink. And I'm not sure who started it first or what, but
yeah, I mean, she was how old when they first met?
Okay, so she 19? Would have been.
I think she's my age, so
they met in 2012. She was 18. She was born in 1995.
So
or 1993. So she would have been like 19 or 20 when she met Nick.
All right. So anybody who's anybody knows that there's a community out there that likes to be tied up. It's just a matter of the degrees of, how far you're willing to go. So for her to be oblivious to this type of environment and that type of kink or anything like that is just dumb. I just watched an early episode of Special Victims Unit yesterday, and that originally came out in 1999. So can't pretend that you've never been exposed to that, or one of her late nights being online never came across anything like that with the cartoons and this and that out there. There's no way she was oblivious to that type of world. No, there's no way.
And let me ask you guys this. So after all of the communication over, how long were you and Nick communicating, you guys?
I would say for at least a couple years.
Okay. Same for you, Harles?
I would say mine was about, I think mine was like short-term mostly. It was like about a year and a half.
Okay.
Just here and there. It just fell off at some point, and life happens and internal issues within the group.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't quite have an HR department to sell stuff within the group.
Oh, is that where we went wrong?
That might have been where you probably should have established HR immediately. I work from home, and I'm my boss, and my coworkers are two cats and a dog. We have HR at this place because they've turned it into a very hostile work environment at times. So yeah, I'd be escalating. I make reports all the days to the HR. Okay, so over the course of the time that you guys communicated with Nick, and I'm sure that you discussed many, many things, do you guys still feel the same way about Nick today, looking back, knowing all of the things that today that you felt in the very beginning? And if you don't, what has changed? What has caused you to feel differently? But Harles, I gotta say, babe, can you go somewhere where the TV isn't, because it comes through the speakers? I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you're good. My kid is.
Oh, I know. You've got kiddos.
All right. How about now?
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you,
he
babe.
decided to steal my steal my tablet and watch SpongeBob at high volume.
Well, I know how kids can be, babe. No problem.
I would say, so the question basically was, how did it just kind of, where are we at now with our stance?
Right.
With Nick,
Do you
right?
guys still feel the same about Nick as you did when you first started communicating with him? And if not, why not? What changed?
I know for myself, I still feel the same about his sentence. It's still unfair. I feel like he needs more interventions. I mean, suppose that he doesn't get out. Does he deserve some type of rehabilitation to be on a better path? I believe he does. I really don't know. It's like I don't feel I'm kind of indifferent in a way, but at the same time, I don't believe anybody like him should be lost in the system without any type
I
of
agree.
redemption. I think prison or not, if you're going to be there forever or not, you still need to the state, the country, the everything just still needs to have some form of rehabilitation to make someone better. Leave them better than what you found them. Versus lock them
Prison
up,
doesn't
don't treat.
fix everything because you're literally just throwing them in a cage and just kind of being like, all right, now stay. And that doesn't actually fix anything. That doesn't help him. Like, I understand he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. That was his sentence. This is where we're at with this. Unless he gets one of those appeals and, gets lucky. But throwing them in that cage doesn't do anything. Yeah, he's off the streets. But mentally, psychology, all of that, like, that's going on in his, in his mind, that doesn't fix any of that. And I feel like that's where the system is broken with it.
Well, I guess my question to you guys would be this. If his sentence was life without the possibility of parole, which it is, and let's say nothing changes, what would be the point of rehabilitation if he's never coming out? Not that I disagree with you guys. I'm just asking the questions.
In a sense, I guess, like, really nothing other than, what if he does get his appeal then? He spent all his time in prison and he, mysteriously wins this appeal.
Right.
And then gets back out on the streets, and now we're, nothing has changed.
Gypsy got all this counseling and certificate for this, certificate for that. But what has Nick had?
Right.
She was getting that because she was going to be on the outside world. Right?
Right.
Him, it's like, yeah, you're done. You're over. We're not putting any type of work towards you. And he, like Giggle said, he gets out, his appeal goes through, shortened sentence, but it's going to still be the same problems if it doesn't get fixed now.
Right. No, I agree with you. They've thrown him away. I just wanted to know what you guys' answers were. I just was curious what your thought process. I think that, let me ask you this, because this is not about me. This is about you guys. What do you guys think about this appeal that he has, that his defense attorneys have mounted? Do you think that it's going to be successful? Do you think that there's a different approach? Do you think, what do you guys think about this appeal?
Honestly, I don't see Missouri coming through with any appeals for him at this point. They have been, they're just like, nope, he's gonna stay there. I don't think they're actually taking anything into consideration, and I don't think that they are willing to budge on that. They kind of gave her a lesser sentence when she was the one that planned it, got the materials to do the deed. She paid for his ticket to come out. Like, yeah, he's the one that went in there and did it, but I feel like she's just as guilty and should have gotten the same sentence.
Right. I mean, she hired him to kill her. I mean, that's essentially what she did. She hired, I mean, it's no different than any of these women out here. Dalia DiPolito, who actually she was not successful. She went to hire a hitman, and it wasn't an actual hitman. She was talking to a cop, an undercover agent, and they arrested her. It was here in the Floridas. I can't believe we don't know about. You know who she is, Giggles.
No, I said I remember that.
Yeah. I figured you would, and and he wasn't even the husband wasn't even unalived. So I'm curious, normal. I was very shocked at the disparity, how different this disparity between the way that Gypsy was treated from the beginning all the way through till now, given her role in the crime. Now, I also want to ask you guys about this secret. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about it, because that's what everybody wants to know. So let's talk about this secret. Okay. Okay. Let me ask the chat first. Who in the chat knows what I'm talking about when I say that Nick has a secret that he's been carrying, that he's been holding on to? Put a 1 in the chat if you know about it, or you've heard about it, even if you don't know what the secret might be, just that you've heard. And put a 2 in the chat if you have no idea. I know you, Lil Red. I know you're all up in the Gypsy stuff, babe. Okay. So I'm going to be very upset if I see a lot of 2s, given the fact that your girl put out a whole documentary a couple weeks ago explaining about the secret. Oh, truth. Team Psych Ward. You're on the list. Pointer Lovers on the list. Wow. Okay, so most people know. All right, so I'm just going to talk about the overall thing, and then the girls and I are going to get into it, because we've talked about this, the girls and I, quite extensively. So Nick has told people in interviews, directly through whether it's phone communication or email communication, that he has this secret that is between him and Gypsy. It is not just his secret. She knows it too. And that he will take it to the grave. Now, many people, I shouldn't say that. Some people think that the pregnancy is the secret. Gypsy told Nick that she was pregnant and that she miscarried. Now, and the story is a little bit different, because I've heard it a couple of different ways, that she miscarried because she told him she miscarried because she was having the feeding tube replaced. Girls, what did Nick tell you was the reason?
So he had called me one night and we were just talking about different things. And I think it was back when we were all mods for NC, and somebody had brought up the pregnancy thing. So I was like, whatever happened with that? And he told me that she told him. Now, this is he said, she said stuff, but that Dee Dee beat her so hard that she miscarried the baby. It was when Gypsy had said that her mom had tied her to the bed and then, I guess, beat her with a belt or an extension cord or something. It was around, I think, that same time. But this is what I believe is what really made him decide, okay, I will do the deed. Because she had convinced him that she was pregnant. And now this lady caused, your girlfriend to lose the baby. And that's what I know of it. And that's what he told me, is that Dee Dee beat Gypsy and she ended up miscarrying.
And I didn't have anything that I knew of. I guess I never asked about the dark secret. Part of me always thought it had to do with Nick not being the only one that caused the stab wounds to Dee Dee. That was my theory on what the secret was.
That's what my theory is. But talking about the pregnancy part of it, that's what he told me. He won't ever tell what the actual secret is. When Nick says he's going to take something to his grave, like, I believe Nick. I've tried to talk to Nick several times about, hey, what is this secret? And he's like, you know, I trust you with everything, but I'm a man of my word, and I'm not gonna say what it is.
And if you hear my kiddo coughing in the background, he's an asthmatic child as well. So he's having an asthma flare up. So if I don't answer right away, it's because I'm giving him a treatment.
No,
You're being
babe,
a
it's fine.
mom.
Listen, kiddos come first. Absolutely, always.
Thank you.
Always. So you guys in the chat, these girls are not streamers. They don't know. This is the only time they've ever come on a panel. And they did this as a favor to me. So be patient, be kind, like I know you guys all can be, and you are, please, for me. I appreciate it. Because we want to hear what the girls have to say. And this is when they could do it. So it's now or never. So to you, Giggles,
Mm-hmm.
the catalyst, as it were, what the deciding factor was to make Nick go, finally agree to do this was this
Mm-hmm.
miscarriage.
That's what I honestly feel, because he was so upset when he found out that she miscarried. And he honestly, heart of heart, believed that she was pregnant. Now, I've seen other things. I've talked to him about the situation, like when they met in the movie theater and stuff. And I think it's very highly unlikely that she was ever pregnant to begin with. So I do feel like she lied about that. But like I said, he has the mentality of a young teenager. He sometimes can be pretty gullible. He can be naive. He was in love with her. He took her word for what it was. He believed everything that she told him. And he honestly felt like that Dee Dee caused a miscarriage. And, not only did that happen, but she was hurting the love of his life at that time. And all he really wanted to ever do was protect Gypsy. And that's what it kind of boiled down to.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, in all sense, he always wants, like, he always wanted to be like a Captain Save-A-Ho. And
Boy,
that's
he
what it
picked a
comes
fucked
down
up hoe,
to.
huh?
Right.
It's like the white knight syndrome. I have to save her.
That's what it is. That's
Only I
honestly
can do
what
it.
it is.
And of course, like, to somebody who's really vulnerable and for once is wanted, they don't want to lose that. They'll do anything. They'll move heaven and earth. And unfortunately, it was unaliving somebody.
Yeah. It's sad. And to that end, talk to me more about this savior, white knight, situation that he has going on. Because another thing that Gypsy has said repeatedly is that he was happy about murdering his mom. And there's a specific situation that we've all talked about, and I will go into that in just a minute. But we'll get there, you guys. But that he was happy about killing Dee Dee, that he was excited about doing it, and that he wanted to do it more than anything else in the world. It didn't take any kind of convincing, and that he always knew that he could call the police and get her out of there. What do you guys think of that, based on conversations you've had with Nick and all of that?
So I'm gonna tell you that that's a lie. Like, that's not. So I asked him about the day that it happened, and he had, I don't know if he texted her or if they ended up talking on the phone, when he was on his way to her house, and he said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And she was like, "Well, Victor said he would." "Oh, but you promised you would." This is the only way you're going to save me. This is the only way you're going to help. This is the only way we can be together. And he was like, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. And she talked him into it. Well, you gave me your word you would do it. And Nick kind of lives by his word is his bond. And he went to the house and, I don't even think she ended up giving him the gloves and everything else. But, yeah, no. And then he was very remorseful afterwards. After they had left.
Don't tell
the
that
house.
story yet. Don't tell that story. We'll wait. Just wait 1 second. Because I want to hear what Charles has to say really quick. And then we're going to talk about that story right after this.
Okay. Charles?
Sorry, I just got done dispensing meds. I don't know. And he's my asthmatic twin, that kiddo. He has the ADD like me, where I have to repeat a question back because maybe I already forgot halfway through you asking that I was supposed to pay attention. So sorry, I just got back. So what are we talking about? Just how gullible, or?
Well, more like he has, Gypsy has said that he was excited about doing this. He wanted to do it. It wasn't something that required him to required her to really do a lot of convincing. And that he always knew that he could call the cops and get her out of there.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to say because on one hand, you know what he's been through. You know his upbringing. He was her only way out of that situation where they can just be together and maybe at some point find a home of their own, settle down. And he was looking at big picture. I don't think he was excited to do it. I don't think he wanted to do it because of how many times he said, no, I don't want to. Just run away, just run away, just run away. And here she is, just, nope, not going to work, not going to work. I'll never be able to leave. It'll never happen. Just this damsel in distress. And he is very protective of who he holds close to his heart. And at that point, she's talking to him nonstop. It's an outlet into the real world for him. And probably the only functional relationship he's ever had, unfortunately.
Right.
To an extent, of course.
Right.
I mean, I don't think he just really wanted to do this. I think he felt maybe he had to do it to save her.
Right. Like this was a last resort. This was all that there was really no, I've always been under the impression that while they discussed plan A, plan B, and plan C, plan B was really the only plan. And to that end, Gypsy did say that when she testified. And I want to be very clear. She testified because she was subpoenaed. It was not part of her plea deal. It was not out of the kindness of her heart. They subpoenaed her. She had no choice. She had to testify. It was not an act of, it wasn't Gypsy doing the right thing. Let's be very clear about that. Now, she may have felt like it was the right thing to do, but even if she didn't think it was the right thing to do, she had no choice. She had to testify. But she said when she was asked by his defense attorney, because she was their witness, were there other plans and other than killing your mom? And she said that was the only plan. And then he asked her the question again, did you ever talk about other things that would get you away from your mom or other plans? He phrased it slightly different. And that was her cue. Oh, wait. Yeah, we did. We had plan A, we had plan B, and we had, was pregnancy and then meeting my mom. That's basically what she changed her mind to, or, that she changed her answer to. But the first answer was, I believe, for Gypsy anyway, that was the only plan. And Captain Obvious asks, why did he and his mom stop speaking, or is that just a rumor? It's not a rumor, girls.
It's definitely not a rumor. I know
No,
early on speaking with Nick, that interrogation that you see was about the last time he ever spoke to his mom. It's
that
like
was the
his mom
last time he ever spoke to his
just
mom.
cut him off right then and there, and it was somebody else's problem at that point. I mean, that just shows you, like, God forbid my kids were to do something. And I have people that I know personally and within my own family where they committed unspeakable crimes. You know, the mom in you is still going to want to make sure that, are you eating? Are you okay? What is it? Love the sinner, not the sin type of situations. Like,
Yeah.
your
Hate this,
crime does
love
not
the
define
sin
you.
or hate the sin.
Yeah. And it's one of those, your crime can only define you if you don't change anything about yourself to move forward. If anything, use it as a platform. Don't do what I did. Find a way out. Don't fall for somebody's bullshit story. And if you're somebody's asking you to unalive their mother, run.
That's a red flag there, guys. If y'all don't
Yeah,
know
that's
that, that's a big
if you
red
haven't caught
flag.
on
I'm
yet.
sorry.
It's like all these opportunities that, I mean, I could see him taking something so literal and being like, all right, we did 1, we did 2, we did 3. All right, this is our only option.
Yeah.
I mean, this just shows you how much he missed out on and how many interventions that could have happened for him earlier in life had he gotten the right type of care from the start. So no, like, long story short, no does not speak to his mom. His mom has since passed away.
Yes.
And no relationship after he was arrested. Not as if there was one to begin with, it seems.
I don't know if you know this, but I've talked to him about that last time that he spoke to his mom, and she did tell him, like, I will always love you. You are my son, but you are not. And she forewarned him, you're not going to hear from me again. You did this crime. You got to pay the price of what you did. Um, but she did tell him that there will always be a place for him in her heart. But that's the day that she walked away from him, and um, in a sense, I think that's the day he kind of killed her off in his mind for the most part. But
It's sad. So
yeah,
Kimberly says here, Ash, I think with the correspondence with people who support him, he would know by now. He might not completely understand the depth of the manipulation, but I think he knows she lied a lot. Now, what would you, I would agree with that, and I think you guys would too. But do you think, well, do you guys think that he understands just really how
much
deep
she
the
deceived him.
lies, yeah, how deep it really goes?
He does, because when we also seen that interview that he did, he didn't know that she was out here talking about him in negative manners like that. And I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but she had wrote him a couple letters about before they were able to block their communication. I don't know if somebody else sent it off for her or what, but she wrote him a couple letters. One mentioning, remember that promise you made me. You need to keep that promise, but also, I'm never going to talk to you in a negative light. I still love you. I still care about you, this, that, and the third. And then he found out that she was out here just blaming 95% of everything on him for the most part, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I know when he did that interview at the jail, he was
He was still
aware.
madly in love with her.
Oh, he was, absolutely, but he does admit, it's very brief. And he says something to the effect of, I'm not going to be like her. I'm not going to say anything bad. I'm not going to say that she deserves to be in prison for the rest of her life. And he said that he would always love her, whether she loved him back or not. But I do want to like expound a little bit on the communicating with him, because I don't think people quite understand what a risk that was.
Mm-hmm.
From the very beginning, when they were arraigned, they were ordered no contact with each other. That was one of the very first things that the judge said. They were not allowed to speak. Even if their trials, initially they were going to be tried together. Even if their trial had not been severed and they were tried together, they would not have been allowed to communicate. These letters that you're talking about, Giggles, because now I know that she tried to get a note passed to Nick when they were both, I think they were both in Greene County at the time, or maybe it was in Waukesha before they got transferred before they were extradited back to Greene County. But I do know that she tried to get one of her friends to pass a note or pass a letter to him. But the letters you're talking about, when were those, do you think, or do you remember?
I believe when he first got to when he first got back to Missouri, he ended up with the letters, and he has since then given them to his attorney. But I mean, it was in her plea deal that she would have no communication with him, and she's still sitting there,
Yeah.
sending him letters at that time.
Yeah, it was in her. They weren't allowed to have contact with each other.
I
That
think
was ordered from the
told
arraignment.
me she sent him a total of 3. It was either 2 or 3. So it's definitely more than one.
Right.
I don't even know if that includes the one that her friend tried to pass off to him.
Mm-hmm.
But there was at least 3 letters that she wrote him, pretty much begging him to keep whatever secret it is. And that she's not going to go to the tabloids about him. She's not going to drag his name through the mud. That she loved him, that she cared about him, and yeah.
Which was an absolute lie, because she's been talking about him from the beginning. I want to ask you girls this, because when you came up with the Nick Godejohn Freedom Project, I know you girls are smart cookies and recognize the role that the media played in this whole situation. Nick's attorneys didn't want anything to do with the media, while Gypsy's attorney embraced the media. And I don't think people really understand that when Mommy, Dead, and Dearest began filming, Gypsy did not have her plea deal at that point. And not only was she, so she didn't have her, she didn't have her plea deal, but her lawyer agreed to work with the film, agreed to be, told Gypsy to do it and participated. So what I want to ask you guys is, do you think that Nick is aware now of the role that the media played? And then we're going to talk about the story that we have been holding back.
I don't know if he knows the media has a part in it.
I know he doesn't like the media anymore,
Yeah.
because of how twisted, like the whole Mr. Smiley thing, just basically making him sound like this crazy killer with some type of, I don't know, like Ted Bundy had his nicknames, and then the killer clown type of, it's like he was Mr. Smiley because he was always being goofy in little emails, and they demonized him further.
It's his way of trying to keep a positive light on himself. Because in prison, what do? You can fall into a depression, and it just, like, he knows he's in there for the rest of his life.
And all the media has done is just twist his words.
Right. And like the Mr. Smiley thing, like, it's his way of like trying to be funny and goofy, and even when he's having a bad day, he still smiles and he tries to, not let that define his entire day. He still tries to have a good day.
Because
Yeah.
I know with me getting the emails with the whole Nicholas, Mr. Smiley, Godejohn, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, that's a funny tag at the end.
Mhm.
You're right.
Nope. Look how crazy he is, and that he is. And so of course the media is going to favor the damsel in distress versus the person who had to commit the act,
Right.
so to speak.
Right. I know. Right. And I think people don't understand. I think that, first of all, when it came out this year, that he signs it, Mr. Smiley, he's been signing that since
Since
forever.
2019.
Right. Exactly. And I think what's being misconstrued is that it is not a personality. It is simply, it
No.
is a nickname. It isn't like, if he were to write an email and he signed it Victor, for, you know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
isn't,
Right.
it's not that. That's not what he's doing. It is a nickname. Okay. Now let's really get into it. Let's tell the brownie story, Giggles.
So I don't know how many people have actually seen that video of Gypsy with the brownies and Nick's laying in the bed. I know that you and I had the conversation this past weekend about that, and you asked me, you're like, why does he look so sad in that video? Like, because he's in the back there, and yeah, he's like eating the brownie, and she's all like running around the room, like, I got brownies, guys. Like, but
Let me do the voice really quick. He's eating a brownie, and
yeah,
soon he'll be eating me. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
But so the reason why he looks so sad is he had just gotten done crying. They had just gotten back to the hotel shortly after the deed was happened, and so they get back to the hotel, they get pizza and brownies apparently. So he was crying, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, and Gypsy's like, why are you crying, what's wrong? And he's like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, he was in total shock, he was crying, he was upset. And he told me that he could feel Dee Dee's presence around him. And he kept saying, please forgive me for what I did to you. Please forgive me, please forgive me. And all of a sudden he felt like, I guess Dee Dee was like, okay, I guess forgave him in a sense and whatever was going on. But he was crying, he was upset. Once after it was done, like he just, it kind of broke him a little bit. And Gypsy was like, well, why are you crying? Why are you upset? I'm not upset. I'm not upset that you did that. And like when she realized, like, he was like, what? Wait, what do you mean you're not upset? Like, your mom's gone. Like, and then she was like, she flipped it to, well, you saved me. She then brings out that Captain Save-A-Ho, knight in shining armor thing, but you saved me. You saved my life. Now we can be together. And he still was like upset about it. He was still crying about it. He was upset for a while after that.
Thank you. Because I've always wondered about that. Nick looks disconnected in that video. And he looks like he's somewhere else. And I wondered about that because her tone, her everything is so off. And I don't know if you girls ever asked him, and I forgot to ask you guys about this. So you know how now Gypsy has said that, she's apparently, a pill popper, and she was high as a kite back then when she's making that video. And that's the reason why she sounds the way she does. Have you guys ever talked to Nick about that? Because I don't believe it. I personally think she might have popped a few Xanax, but I don't think she had it like that.
Heard of her being a pill popper. And I went back
Mm-hmm.
through the documentaries because I'm thinking, no, I remember 4 years ago when I first got into this case, I watched whatever I could. And I don't remember any pill popping coming into play until the Lifetime deal.
Yep, me too.
I don't remember once it coming out. It was she's supposed to be taking these meds and her mother was
Mm-hmm.
drugging her. Fine. But we never heard that she was addicted to this at all or anything like that. So, but that was a first for me to hear about it ever.
Yeah.
Right.
See, I was shocked.
We would
when I
have
it,
heard
too.
a lot more about her having to withdraw from all of it.
Right.
Than what we actually, nobody had said it. And with all the drama cases going around on Facebook, somebody would have found out and somebody would have said something back then about it.
And if it was to help in her defense, why wasn't that put in as her defense? If I missed it,
Right.
Correct me, but
it wasn't.
I don't know. I am going to let you guys know I do have to go in a few.
Okay, babe. I
Sort this all out,
appreciate you doing this. Now, Patricia, I appreciate your opinion. I didn't see anybody body shaming Nick or Gypsy, and this isn't about supporting Nick. I want to be very, very clear about this. Okay. This is about me talking to my friends who communicated with Nick and what their experience was. I don't think any of us know what exactly went on with Gypsy because, to be quite frank, I don't think we've heard the truth yet. And that's just how I feel. And so I didn't see anybody in the chat, and I certainly didn't body shame her, and none in my panel guests didn't either. So
yeah, I was kind of confused about that.
Yeah,
I'm
confused.
I didn't say nothing.
Yeah, listen, nobody is shaming Gypsy, but let's be honest, okay? If we're going to have a discussion, we got to at least agree on some facts. And one of the things that I think can all agree on is that Gypsy is a liar. Gypsy will tell you that she's a liar. So when we're saying we
I'm
don't
pretty
know,
sure in one of the documentaries she admitted.
yeah,
she's a
she
liar.
started out saying that. She sat down to the interview, and Mommy Dad and Dearest saying that she was a liar.
Even with my lawyer.
Correct. So this is the problem is we are hearing one side of what she went through in her life at home. The other side of that is dead and has no voice. I don't know about any of you guys, but I am like Carl's here. I have watched and read every single thing there is to watch and read. The act was something different. I knew it was never going to be accurate. It was, it was a drama series. And so it was something to watch, but it wasn't anything that I used to get any information or educate myself on this case. But in all of the documentaries, I have yet to see a single solitary piece of medical file that shows exactly what procedures that she had that were not required. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I'm at the point now where I need to see some evidence. That's how I roll. I need to see documentation. Now, I don't expect for Gypsy to bust out her whole ass medical file, but something other than a Dr. Flasterstein who said, well, I tested her and, she could walk. And Dee Dee was mad about that. I need to see something else. Well, I know that she does. Okay. Aleph, I know that the Good Wives Network has medical documents. But like I said, I have not seen them. And I mean, I know what they have. I know what they, let me, how do I put this, girls? How can I say this the right way? I know that Natasha and the Good Wives Network have read from things that they have from Gypsy's medical records, but I've never seen them for myself. I'm not doubting that they have them, but medical records have to be read and have to be looked at in context. And to simply flip through a file, and I'm not, this is just how I feel about it, to simply flip through a file and pull out some piece of paper from that file and read from it doesn't give you the whole picture. So I just have a very difficult time. And by the way, Fancy and Natasha both have said many times, just like I've said many times, that I don't think we've heard the truth yet. I don't think that everything that has been claimed actually happened in the way that it was told. I think that there's been some over dramatization of some things, and that's it. Okay.
And on that
Well, I
note,
mean, you know
I'm
what
gonna
they
bid
say.
you
There's
guys adieu
always
real quick.
You're gonna what, babe?
I'm gonna bid you adieu. Let's do this again. This has been fun.
We're gonna have a part 2 because we have so much more to get into. We barely got to scratch the surface.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
for
And I'll
being up here,
see you
babe.
next time.
Bye. Thanks, babe. I appreciate you doing
Bye.
this favor for me.
Not a problem. Thank you guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So, I mean, giggles. Okay. Just for tonight, because I've kept you guys for like an hour and a half, and it's a school night, and I know you have to work and stuff. And I want to say thank you guys so much for being here, both of you. I know Harles can hear me, but thank you guys for doing this, because I knew that I asked them to do this a long time ago, and they were like, "Nah, we good." And then one day
it wasn't even that. We always said we would talk about it.
Yeah.
But I had a full of school and working 60 plus hours a week and then doing full-time school on top of it. I just didn't have the time or really the energy to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I will say this. Giggles and Harles have talked quite extensively on the phone about this case recently and over the years. And one of the things that we have talked about is this secret. Now, I am of the belief, and Giggles, you correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of what's gone on with Nick is that Nick has not been asked the right question in the right way. And should he be asked the right question in the right way, I believe that Nick would be quite forthcoming. And to that end, I do think that the secret that Nick is holding for Gypsy, because this is the only thing that would make sense. This is the only thing that would ever have any impact on her, is her level of involvement. And I am working very diligently to sort that out. And that will be featured quite prominently in part 3 of the documentary that and I'm not going to just make something up and pull out and say a theory. I'm not going to say anything until I can show you guys proof. So that will be coming. But I do think that, what do you think about that, Giggles?
We all have theories about his secret and everything else. I do believe if we can find a way to ask it in a way where he doesn't feel like he portrays that trust, that promise, he could eventually spill. Because right now he doesn't have any loving feelings for Gypsy. He actually quite despises her. So it's not that he's trying to keep the secret to like save Gypsy. That's not it. I honestly believe it's because he promised her and he wants to try to keep that promise.
Yeah.
Now I feel like we all have speculations on what that secret could be, and I know you and I've talked about it, and you and I and Harles, I believe, all three of us agree on what we think it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I asked him about it, quite recently, actually, he told me it was the letters. He was like, "Oh yeah, it's the letters," and I'm like, "Bro, I know that's not true." Like, just like. And he was like, and he kind of tried to like change the subject on it,
Right.
which is how I know it wasn't that.
Right.
But I feel like if we could figure out how to ask him in the correct way,
Mm-hmm.
he'll eventually spill it. And I feel like if he can, I feel like honestly, if it's gonna help his case, he should just come out and say it.
That's what I say, because here's the deal.
F her feelings.
Right.
F
Nothing can
her.
happen
She's
to
out.
her.
She's living her best life doing whatever she's doing.
Right. And
But-
nothing can happen to her. If he
Right.
tells, if the secret is what we think the secret is, nothing will happen to her. Because it wasn't like, and this is why I'm going to explain why nothing can happen to her. Something could have happened to her had the plea deal been handled differently. If Patterson had said to Gypsy, as part of the plea deal, you must testify under oath, and you must say what happened that night, everything, leave nothing out, and you cannot lie. And if it comes out at a later date that you have lied to us, we can
Or omitted anything.
We will revoke the plea deal. They do it all the time, but they So Gypsy has zero to lose, nothing to lose, nothing by telling the truth, the whole truth. And what I will say about,
I mean, she still says she doesn't feel like she's a murderer, though.
She doesn't identify as one. Well, that's too bad, ma'am, because the state of Missouri
And I saw an interview where she was like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm like a murderer because all I did was supply the stuff, and all I did was like get him here, and all I did was everything but the actual act itself."
What is, hold on, I want to look this up because she said this before, and I've never actually looked this up. Hold on, does Missouri have a charge as an, hold on,
See, the thing with Nick too, though, and I don't know who knows this. I don't even know if you know this. I don't even know if I told you this, but they had offered him a deal at one point.
Yes.
Yes. And they had offered him 20 years and then probation. And his attorney said no. I feel like he was railroaded from the beginning with this.
Do you think that his attorney, so he was told by his attorneys not to take it?
Yeah.
Is that because
he was told not to take the deal because they were gonna, they had gotten him in front of their, psychiatrist, and who was like, yeah, he has like the, a younger mentality, and like the autism is a little like, he's not like incapable of stuff, but he is autistic and he is on that spectrum where, but they were gonna try to play that hand more. And they were like, we're gonna get you like the same deal Gypsy got. And so Nick went to Bobby about it and was like, Dad, what do I do? Like, I feel like I should take this, but the attorney's telling me no. And his dad's like, bro, I would listen to your attorney. They have your best heart out there for you. And not realizing that his attorney really, I don't think had his best interests out. So then he ended up with life without probation, and then like I think it was like plus another like 33 years or something.
Yeah, for the armed action.
Yeah, it was like life plus
plus
another
30.
33 years.
Something.
30 years, okay.
Yeah, something
I knew it was
33,
something
30,
like
something
that.
like that, yes. But nobody pays attention to because of the life without the possibility of parole. But Gypsy has said that under the Missouri law, the reason she was charged with first-degree murder is because there's no accomplice charge. That is incorrect. Here we go, right here. Accomplice liability under the 1979 Missouri Criminal Code. Let me see. Accomplice liability is perhaps the most difficult theory to understand in criminal law. The person being tried for the crime did not physically perform the acts which constitute the crime, but only aided or abetted the principal actor of the offense. It has therefore been necessary to prove not only the acts and the state of mind of the accomplice, but also the acts and the state of mind of the principal. So there was a charge for that. That is a lie. You got charged with the way that you were charged, Gypsy, because you did more than aid and abet. You planned it and you paid for it and you opened the door. There is an accomplice charge. So that is absolute caca. That's a lie. I knew she was wrong about that, and it's been in the back of my brain to Google that for the longest time. But people just let her get away with that. It's not true. And I think that this is what I think his lawyers told him. His lawyers have argued that Nick, while guilty of killing Dee Dee, is not guilty of the crime of first-degree murder because he just cannot perform the required deliberation as defined by law. And I think that what they advised him was that there needs to be his charge. They think they can beat this charge, and that he could walk. And none of us will ever know exactly what was said between Nick and his attorneys. And more to the point, none of us will ever know how Nick interpreted the advice that he got from his attorneys. And so I think that the truth between whether his attorneys advised him to take the deal or not take the deal, I think that it lies somewhere in the middle. I think that I don't think that Nick quite understood exactly what the deal was that he was being offered and what he was facing. And I think that I highlighted a comment earlier about, do I think he will ever get a new trial? Not with it, not the way, not under this, not with this kind of an appeal. First of all, the first part of the appeal goes to ineffective assistance of counsel. Ineffective assistance of counsel is probably one of the most difficult appeals to mount. It is very rarely successful. For example, whether you believe Brandon Dassey guilty or not guilty is irrelevant. Just don't entertain that at all. Okay, it doesn't matter for the purposes of this argument, and we're not going to discuss this case. It's just for this example. But Brandon Dassey's attorney allowed him, after he had been arrested, after he had been charged, to be questioned, videotaped, and tested without him being present and that is grossly negligent. He shouldn't have been. The whole purpose of having an attorney is so that you're never speaking to the prosecutor or the cops without your attorney being present. And we just were listening to Letitia Stout's calls. Every time Letitia talked about her case, it's noted in the jail file because she essentially was lawyered up and they're not allowed to talk to her. So what Brendan Dassey's attorney did, because that interview was then used against him and his attorney was not there to represent him and gave permission. That's grossly negligent and a prime example of ineffective assistance of counsel. And yet his appeal was unsuccessful. They're very difficult to mount. And part of the problem with the second part of the appeal, which goes to the diagnosis and understanding, is that all of these different avenues were available to Nick's original trial attorneys. And they chose not to use it. And quite frankly, it's my opinion that probably the worst disservice they did was calling Gypsy as their own witness. And here's why. There were many, many times on that stand where Gypsy was not honest, and the defense knew it, but she was their witness, and so therefore she couldn't be. You can't impeach your own witness. Okay. So then when it comes time for cross-examination, and we all know the rules of testimony, the opposing counsel can ask all the leading questions they want as long as it's within the scope of the direct, right? If you go back and you really just listen to the cross-examination, yeah, it's leading as hell. And it's leading in a way that allows Gypsy to continue the narrative that it was all Nick's idea. And so I don't think that the appeal that they have drafted will ever be successful. I don't even think that if they get it in front of the state Supreme Court, I don't think it will be successful. I don't think that the U.S. Supreme Court will hear it. And I think that part of the problem is that when Nick was on trial to begin with, the expert that tested him and examined him and evaluated him was very, very knowledgeable, but he was very, very dry. Whereas the state's witness was very affable. He joked with the jury. He was engaging to the jury, and the jury listened to him. And Nick's original expert witness basically said exactly what's in that appeal. Look, you can't understand. You can't use deliberation under the law with a person on the spectrum, because their way of deliberating is not the same. And deliberation means that you're aware that you have a choice. And Nick was not aware at the time that he had a choice. So I feel like, I don't think that this appeal, the way that it's, which I'm not an attorney, but I've just seen a lot of fucking appeals. And I just don't think this one's going to be successful. I just don't. It's unfortunate. And I'm not so sure that Nick belongs with, I think that if Nick were to be given a new trial and were to be acquitted or to be released with time served, okay, I think that is very problematic, because something occurred there. And we need to figure out how Nick got to where he is, and then be able to figure out if he can be rehabilitated. We don't want to put somebody on the streets that's going to potentially be a danger to somebody else.
But this touches back to what we were saying earlier. What's the point if he's,
correct,
put in prison for the rest of his life? Well, what's the point of getting him this therapy? Well, on the chance that he actually wins one of these appeals.
Right, exactly.
Because honestly, I don't think he should be out on the street just willy-nilly the way he is right now. I feel like he does need some sort of therapy, maybe medication, maybe a combination of the both, whatever.
Right.
But not giving them that opportunity to get the help they need and just throwing them away is not the answer, because that's how our prisons just fill up and fill up and fill up and fill up and fill up.
Right, exactly.
I'm not saying free him and let him walk the way he is. I
No,
am a firm believer in therapy. I do believe that therapy therapy won't help everybody,
no, no,
but
you
there's that chance that it will help.
exactly. Well, to Ash's point here, Ash says, "Oh, look at this pupster on the screen." Giggles. Look at that good-looking baby.
Oh,
I know. In the Casey Anthony trial, the prosecution did purposely impeach their own witness, Cindy Anthony, and the internet searches. Well, yeah, I mean, it can be done, but in this situation, we're talking about with Gypsy, the reason they didn't want to impeach their witness is because one of the things that they most wanted to get out of her, which they did, which she was telling the truth, that the murder was her idea, the majority of the plan was her idea, right? They needed to get who talked him into it. I did. They needed to get her. They needed that to come out. And so you have to be very careful impeaching a witness because you don't want the jury. Most people who are on a jury are just regular, everyday, average people like me and you, right? And to me, this is the kind of juror I would be. If you will lie about one thing, everything else you say then becomes suspect. Then I'm like, without anything to, if I only have your word and nothing to back it up, right? So if when it comes right down to it, if they had impeached her, then it was very likely that the jury might say, well, if she lied about this, then she probably lied about the planning too. Maybe Nick was more involved. Do you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't going to work out for them. I think it was a huge mistake for them to call her as a witness. I just think it was. Maybe if they would have called her as a hostile witness, which is where a witness testifies against their own self-interest, if that had been done and they had been allowed to really go at her and put, really go in on the lies. For example, she said that Nick was her only boyfriend. We all know that's a lie. And so did the prosecutor, and so did everybody in that, well, not the jury, but all of the attorneys in the courtroom, because she'd already done Mommy, Dad, and Dearest and already admitted to having a boyfriend that she ran away from home to. There's a
I
lot
mean,
of,
but was Dan really a boyfriend, or was it just like a hookup?
I don't know what he was, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, there were multiple people in that home that knew that she didn't need a wheelchair.
Yeah.
They knew she could walk. And nobody, this is why I question what was really going on. I'm not talking about all the time. I'm talking about specifically the years between 2007 and 2011 when she left home, or when the whole situation with Dan happened. And then from 2012 to 2015. I question what was actually the circumstances. Dee Dee was very sick between 2014 and 2015. I mean, she went to the hospital like multiple times for kidney stones, among other things. And so, I mean, you can see in those pictures, those last pictures that were taken of Gypsy and Dee Dee together, she was not healthy. I personally believe that the conflict that came between Gypsy and Dee Dee when the situation with Dan happened, I believe that took a lot of wind out of Dee Dee's sails. And I believe that's the moment where there was a power shift. And I think that in the end, especially the last year of Dee Dee's life, Gypsy was the one that was maintaining that household, not Dee Dee. And, I think that should be explored. And the fact of the matter is, I think that if Gypsy were to be honest and allow herself to be a little bit vulnerable instead of painting this picture, because look at how the debacle with Ryan has turned out, right? They
Mm-hmm.
came out, they were lovey-dovey, it was all rainbows, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, right? Everything was right with the world. They were all in love, blah, 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 right? And then what's happened? She's not even been out 6 months. And they're already getting a divorce, and she's right back with Ken. And I don't give a rat's fat kneecap what you say, Gypsy. You ain't kicking it with him and just friends. Period. Okay? So just stop playing with these
Facts.
people and be honest about it. And I think that if she would have said in that Nick Vile interview when they were asked, what's it like? The truth of the matter is when you only know somebody after you've been in prison, you met them while you were in prison. You don't know them from Adam's house cat before you go to prison. You meet them after the fact. You get into a relationship and then you parole to their house. Their struggles. For fuck's sake, there's a whole show about it. It's called Love After Lockup. I know Lifetime's trying to give their Wish version, talking about life after lockup, but there's been a show that's been on the We network for fucking years now called Love After Lockup, and that thing is a whole dumpster fire, and they don't even have they're not even like getting parole
In the media the way.
Right. And
they
not
are.
only that, their charges aren't all as serious, and they don't have the situation that Gypsy says that she lived under. Do you know what I mean? So I think, Gypsy, if you can hear me at any point, I think what you ought to do is, first of all, you need to work on you. Okay. You need to be okay with you before you bring in another human being. And if Ken is the one, he will be the one and he will be the one waiting while you work on yourself. If y'all are meant to be, it will be. So wouldn't you rather be with the person, your soulmate, when you're a whole person,
But I feel like she gets these men that she feels is like malleable.
Yes.
And this is
a very good word. That's a good word, Giggles.
I try to be.
I love it.
But no, like all jokes aside, like I feel like she finds these malleable guys and like she uses them and then discards them. Like I know everybody was taking bets on how long her and Ryan were gonna last once they like announced and and I think
I wish I knew where that poll was. What we did
it
with
disappeared.
That
I went back in there, but I said less than a year.
I think I said like 90 days, something like that. But I was just joking, and I even who knows? Look, I think, and everybody that watched what happened knew that this was not going to be, this wasn't going to be. They weren't going to go off into the sunset and live happily ever after. This was not her Prince Charming.
No, but I feel like she used him in the same way as Nick.
Yes, I do too.
Now, this is all speculation. Please, nobody run around and be like, yo, this is what happened. No, this is what I feel like happened is she probably tried to fill Dan out to see if Dan would unalive her mother. She probably realized that was going to be a no-go, and she found Nick.
Correct.
She was like, man, this dude is madly in love with me. Let me see how far I can get this.
Correct.
Oh, snap, you're willing to do this? All right, say less.
Correct.
And it kind of shows because when you look at that interview with her and the police, she tries to play, oh, well, I'm innocent and I'm this and I'm that and oh no, like I couldn't have done this. And I feel like her whole motive was that with all that is she honestly did not think she was going to go to jail. She thought they were going to come find her. And I think that's why she posted those messages on Facebook. They were going to come find her. They were going to take her away from Nick. Nick was going to do the whole bid. And that she was going to be able to run off and do whatever she wanted to do. And she could finally be with Dan.
Correct. Because, and this is something that not very many people know, but Gypsy refers to Dan in that interrogation. But the other thing that not a lot of people know is that when Gypsy got a hold of her stepmother, she asked her stepmother to call Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Ryan is the new Nick, and
Yeah.
that Ken is the new Dan. I think Ryan was a means to an end. I've said this before. I think that he served a purpose because he was local to Louisiana, and the plan was always for Gypsy to parole to Louisiana. But before there was Ken, it was that she was going to parole to Louisiana and live with Rod and Christy, and she didn't want to do that. And so when Ryan came along, he was local and he was willing, and it's not like he's a fucking monster. So, she's like, okay, bet. So they got married, she got parole. And then if you watch that Nick Vile interview with her, don't scroll to the part where Ryan comes on. Watch from Ryan on. And there is a part where they discuss Dan, and just listen to it. Just listen to it. You'll hear it. You'll hear it. So, I mean, it is what it is. Whatever happens with Gypsy, listen, I don't wish any negative on her. I want her to be successful. I hope that I love a good comeback story.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you right now, speaking as this is advice that I would give my own daughters, and Gypsy's she's too old to be one of my kids, but regardless, if this is something that I have and would say to my daughters and my sons, going back to an ex is like taking a shower and putting on dirty underwear.
Yep.
It's gross, and you're not going to feel right the rest of the fucking day. And that's facts. There's a reason you weren't together. There's a reason you broke up. And that's that, period. Because what has changed? What circumstances have changed between now and then? Right? Nothing, except for now she's out.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has changed.
And I think that's part of the reason why was it Ken that broke up with her, or did she break up with Ken?
He broke up with her. He said he couldn't handle the spotlight. Now that is what we've been told publicly. Who the hell knows what actually happened?
Right. I feel like I could see that. If you're not used to the spotlight, now you have paparazzi popping up, trying to find you and stuff. Now you have all these internet people up here looking for you, like trying to get your part of the story and this and that, and you're not used to that type of stuff. You got to remember, Gypsy was always in the light.
Yes.
So her being in the spotlight, and even now, doesn't faze her, because her entire childhood, she's always been in the spotlight. She's
Correct.
always been, the center of all the topics. But I could see that part with Ken, being like, hey, I need a break from this. Like, we need to distance ourselves, because I can't deal with that. Because I know me, I'm antisocial. I don't want all them cameras on me and stuff. Like, what are you doing? Like, if somebody stares at me too long, I'm like, what are you doing? Stop staring at me. Go away. Like, I have to tell the guys at work, because they do this shit just to irritate the hell out of me. I'm like, what are you doing? Go away. Don't you have something to do? Stop looking at me.
Look, Gypsy's doing exactly what she was trained to do. And so I find it difficult I do feel badly for the way that Gypsy was raised, because the medical situation is up for debate. Okay. So let's take that out of the equation. At the end of the day, she was raised to be a liar, a scammer, and a manipulator. That is not the recipe for a healthy childhood, okay,
No.
or good childhood. So in
Or
that
an
sense,
adulthood.
correct. So in that sense, yes, she was absolutely not treated well and abused, okay, and it is what it is, and she's but she's got to. She's been raised, she's doing exactly what she was trained to do, what her mother trained her to do. The press tour, most people who have committed the crime that she committed would get out and be like, man, I just need, let me work on me. And when I'm ready to talk, I'll talk. But
Right.
she didn't. She went immediately into, she was already working on the prison confessions, because that was filmed before she got out. Right. Then she goes into filming this next, life after lockup, or whatever the hell it's called, which, whatever. So it was, and then she was, touring all over Hell's Half Acre. She was in New York. I'm on The View, and I'm over here, and I'm over there. She was doing all of those things. And so, listen, at the end of the day, I don't want anything bad to happen to Gypsy, but I would like to see Gypsy use her notoriety and her infamy. Don't mistake infamy for famous. You're infamous is a big difference.
Yeah. And I don't think she sees it that way. I think she sees herself as this
famous
inspiration and this,
right.
Oh my God, look at everybody, look at me. I'm amazing. And my mother abused me. And, it's like what you said, like, I'm not going to take away, she had a shitty childhood.
Yeah, she did.
She had a very, very bad childhood.
She did.
But there's so many people out there that have just as bad, if not worse. And you can either live and do what she did to get her way out, or she could have always stood up and walked.
She could have.
And at that point, anything her mother would have said would have been invalid. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
You're telling everybody, it's been all over the news, that your daughter cannot walk. She is bound to that wheelchair. But all Gypsy had to do was get up. All Gypsy had to do was get up.
But see, this is the part that I'm confused about, Giggles, which is so hard for me when I know your government name to call you that. Like, you hear me start, like, can't do it every time. But this is the part this is what makes me question that. The witnesses. Dan, not even Dan. Dan wasn't, they were at Dan's friend's house. There was a group of people there who saw Gypsy walk without a wheelchair. She showed up sans wheelchair. And
that, to me, the only explanation to why they weren't shocked is, I'm pretty sure, just like she told Nick she can walk, she told Dan she can walk.
Right, but here's my point. My point about that is, she did tell Dan she could walk. Dan knew what the score was, but I don't know about the guests at the house. What in all of the times that Gypsy has told that story, and she's told it in every single interview, in every single documentary that she has ever given, the only thing that changed in prison confessions was she said a name. For the most part, that story has remained consistent. We know that people did see it because they talked about it on MJ Pack's thought catalog, and that was that was in real time, way before any documentary ever came out. But what we never hear from Gypsy, and this is what gives me pause, is what was the conversation like? You like, at that point, the gig was up. These people that she knew were from the convention circuit. These were people that, were under the impression she was younger than she said, younger than she was. They believed that she was 15 and not 18. They believed that she was sick, and they believed that she couldn't walk. And yet here she is around those people, and she's allegedly, according to the messages, she was made to apologize to them. But there's no talk about a conversation between Gypsy and Dee Dee about, holy shit, they fucking saw you walk. Now what are we going to do? Now, you would think that there would be a conversation about that, but there wasn't. Or if there was, nobody has asked her that. And I would love to know the answer to that question. I don't want to hear about you being tied to the bed or handcuffed or whatever the hell it was, right? I don't want to hear about that. I want to know what.
I don't think it was handcuffed. I think she said she was tied with an extension cord.
She said a leash, a dog leash and handcuffs, girl. That's how she's been told. That might have been different to what she told Nick, but the story she tells is a leash and handcuffs. Now, I want to know what the conversation between you, Gypsy, and Dee Dee was about how y'all were going to handle the fact that the gig was up. Maybe see, that's where I'm given pause. I want to, you know what I'm saying? What exactly
Right.
was the situation then? What exactly was Dee Dee trying to tell people that she had? Because I'll tell you guys this. There's nothing in the documents, the medical records from Mercy Hospital from the years 2007 until the year 2015. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I will prove it to you. Don't worry. So, Mo, listen, that is for another conversation, sir. Tied to the bed and handcuffed. How are you just going to skip past that? Tell it all. Well, that's what she said. Yeah, that's what she said happened. But moving forward, I would like to see Gypsy use her infamy for good.
Hmm.
Pay back the foundations that it doesn't that you when you went on that last trip to Disney World and to Universal on Universal Studios or on Make-A-Wish Foundation's dime, you knew you weren't sick and you knew you could walk. Pay that foundation back in whatever way you can. You have money. Stop playing. I don't know why you're asking for spousal support. You've got money.
Yeah.
But the better thing to do would not only be to pay them back monetarily. I know you're a felon and you're limited and you probably can't be around kids because of the violent crime that you were charged with, but you're resourceful, Gypsy. If you can convince a man who lives states away to kill your mother, you can figure out a way to repay those charities.
Yep.
You could.
I mean, even if she just advocates for, the companies and all of that and the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I mean, that'll, put that out there, Yeah, I understand that what me and my mom did was wrong, but and I paid my time or whatever,
Right.
but
If you know what she could do though, Giggles, like she could say, if you're considering paying me for my appearance on whatever show it is, I want you to, I realize that she's a felon. And she has never worked. And it's not that she's not educated. She just she's got spotty education. I mean, it did take her quite some time to complete her GED. So, what I would suggest is, why don't you put it in your writers when you are agreeing to do these various shows, that a portion of whatever fee it is that they're going to pay you to appear, that they donate, you keep 10% and donate the 90% to the charities that you and your mother grifted from. That would be a start, especially Make-A-Wish, because that one, especially that last trip, Gypsy, you knew then that you could walk. You talk about it in your interrogation video. Come on. You knew you could walk and you knew you weren't sick and you knew that you weren't all that other part. I didn't know how not sick I was until I went to jail. That's a lie too, because what medication did you take? You took some damn Dramamine and Benadryl with you. Okay. And you could definitely read. So you know what Benadryl does. You know what, and come on.
right.
All right. Well, I've kept you guys long enough. We've been on for 2 hours and I was on for 2 hours before that. And I'm kind of sick of hearing my own voice, to be quite frank with you guys. I'm over myself. So Giggles, I really appreciate you coming up here. We're going to do this again. And we're going to get into more stuff because there's a whole lot of conversation that we've had that we didn't have on this panel that we need to get into. We need to start a little earlier.
Yeah.
Thanks you guys in the chat too for being cool and being respectful to my guests and respectful to each other. Listen, we're not all going to see this case the same way. And I've said it a million times, and I'll say it 11 billion more. This case is not black and white. There's a lot of gray. And I don't think that I'm 100% right. And I don't think that anybody in the chat is 100% wrong. I think the truth of the matter is probably somewhere in between what we're all thinking. Probably,
There's always
you know,
his side, her side, and the truth.
correct. So I'm going to say goodnight to all of you guys and end this live, and I will see you tomorrow. I don't know. I'm pretty tired. I don't know if I'll be streaming Chad Daybell's trial, but if not, I definitely plan to discuss what's been going on in that trial. I'm not happy about what I saw today. All right. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys. Make sure you give your girl a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.